The 5 or 6 times I've ever smoked marijuana, I've never done it except with people I know and trust and who are friends. And Mark Emery was someone I met, but certainly not someone I ever would have thought of smoking with. And I did not ever smoke with Mark Emery, although he smoked in front of me.
Mark Emery, of course, the so-called Canadian Prince of Pot, who was convicted in the United States, extradited, spent time in prison. In fact, he's in the process now of being released and coming back to Canada, where he wants to campaign for Justin Trudeau. And Jodie Emery, his wife, wants to take it even further. JJ, she intends to run for the Liberals in a riding in Vancouver.
Yeah, she intends to seek the Liberal nomination in Vancouver East, which is very liberal, very left-wing riding, I should say. It's Libby Davies' riding, so it's a real sort of uphill battle. But it does present an enormous challenge for the Liberal Party. I mean, that clip that you showed was quite revealing, is that Justin Trudeau, even though he is in favor of legalizing marijuana, he sort of has this very sort of equivocating position on it. He does not believe it's fundamentally a good thing. He's described it as a vice. When he talks about his own use of it, he does so in very sort of coached language that's very self-conscious. That is in enormous contrast to the Emerys, who of course believe marijuana is a great thing. I mean, Mark Emery goes around talking about like how sort of all of mankind's greatest inventions, art and music and whatnot, come directly from marijuana use. So, I mean, this is the challenge, because you can be in favor of legalizing marijuana in a very sort of pragmatic way, in the way that Justin Trudeau is, but the problem is then you're opening the door to the real crank, the extreme pro-marijuana set, who believe that marijuana is actually a good thing, that people should be encouraged to use, and that there is no sin or judgment deserved of its consumption. And that is not a position that I think Justin Trudeau wants to be associated with, which is why Jodie Emery's candidacy could potentially be so problematic for him.
Well, it's interesting that you call her the Liberals' worst nightmare. I've never met her, but I've talked to her, by remote hookup, as I am with you now, a number of times. And, she's an attractive candidate from two standpoints, that she is attractive as a woman, and she's very articulate. She defends herself very well in an argument. She never gets upset if you kind of go after her for something that she's just said, which is an admirable quality. So why is she such a nightmare candidate in your view?
She's a nightmare candidate because she is associated with a very libertine philosophy that I don't think Justin Trudeau or the Liberal Party wants to have to defend. Justin Trudeau considers these issues sideshows. He wants to talk about the economy. Well, if you're running Jodie Emery, who, as I said, is not only pro-legalization of pot, but just likes pot in general. She was the editor of a pro-pot magazine. She and her husband have founded Pot TV. They've been involved in head shops and seed selling and all the rest of it. That is not a position that I think Justin Trudeau wants to be associated with, because there is such a thing as going too far to the left when it comes to social issues. Justin Trudeau is already to the extreme left on the abortion question, as we know. That was a gaffe. That was an embarrassment. I don't think he's happy with that being as dominant in the headlines as it is. And so now to be super pro-marijuana through this kind of high-profile figure as one of your sort of star candidates, whether he wants it or not. And then, of course, the sort of very difficult position that the Liberal Party is in right now in regards to this whole prostitution thing. A lot of the Liberal Party base would like to see, I believe, Justin Trudeau embrace the cause of legalized prostitution, but that again is a step too far. And this kind of stuff matters because, as we know, elections are essentially won by voters in the middle, by voters in the sort of swing ridings, swing voters, not just the hardcore committed left. And the problem is that when you have a candidate like Jodie Emery, who is super in favor of legalized pot, super in favor of legalized prostitution as well, suddenly you're having to constantly play defense on these issues instead of having the discussion that you want to do, which is the stuff about the economy and middle-class growth and whatnot.
All right, but if Justin Trudeau considers marijuana, for instance, to be kind of a fringe issue, well, it's his own fault. He's the one who just brought it up by blurting out that he was in favor of legalization. He had to know, or maybe he didn't stop to think, that a certain constituency would rise up, like lava from a volcano, in order to grab onto that. On the other hand, he has certainly shown that he will use the heavy hand of leadership and tell Jodie to take a hike.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I think it's quite fascinating, because then you're sort of opening up this whole other, Pandora's box. Because of course Justin has prided himself on the man who's going to have open nominations, right? Open nominations in every riding across the country. And so for him to have to bring down the hammer again, he's already broke this promise, of course, several times in the past. And for him to bring down the hammer on this, to say that no, Jodie Emery, your views on marijuana are too extreme. I mean, this is very difficult, because that is again to alienate a large portion of his base.
Okay, we're talking about Vancouver, though. I mean, is there enough of a base in Vancouver that Jodie could actually win?
I don't know. I mean, it is an extraordinarily safe NDP riding. I mean, it's Livy Davies. I mean, I said the other day, this is a riding where people would probably vote NDP if you chopped off their hands. It's one of the safest ridings in the entire country. And it's like this very sort of like super hipster, like young left-wing sort of bohemian neighborhood. But I mean, you know, at the end of the day, you know, it's been as safe it is in part because the other parties have just kind of written it off. It's, you know, it's Livy Davies' little fiefdom. She's had it for 17 years. We're not even going to try. If there is anybody that could potentially win it, it would be somebody like Jodie Emery, who does sort of have that leftist bohemian cred that could possibly mobilize voters to the polls. I mean, her position on marijuana is more extreme than even the NDP position.
All right, so then something else about that riding. Is it the kind of place where someone on that issue and someone who can present herself as well as Jodie Emery can, could she in fact just decide to run, well, if Justin doesn't want me, I'll go green, I'll go independent, that sort of thing?
Yeah, she could, and I mean, she has run for the Green Party in the past, and her husband has run for the marijuana party that he founded in the past. I mean, these people are, I mean, they know how to raise a headline, they know how to get a fuss. Actually, it was quite interesting. Jodie was on Sun the other day, and she sort of mused about possibly being an independent if she thought that Justin Trudeau's heavy hand was too strong for her. I mean, that would really be in the best interests of Justin Trudeau. I mean, but the fact is, like, I mean, there's questions to be asked how serious this candidacy is. If she's merely just running because she wants to raise her own profile, or whether or not she's actually serious about running for the Liberal Party. I mean, Justin Trudeau is no doubt holding his breath that this is just a stunt, because as I said, I think his worst nightmare is having to defend this woman.
Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
You too, sir.
Up